When I think of custom pinnacle flashlight machining, like the absolute top crazy time attention to detail machining, I can only think of about 3 makers, and Jeff Hanko from Hanko Machine Works is definitely the best of them. Welcome back to Shoelights. Today we're going to be talking about extremely high-end flashlights. These are flashlights that are made by a maker who knows his stuff. And these are really expensive. They're more kind of like custom pocket watches or custom knives, right? Like they're not designed just to give you light. They're designed to be beautiful to hold and look at and just really kind of like jewelry in a way. So we're going to talk about the release order. We're going to talk about the finishes and metals they're available in. We're going to talk about where to get them, what's for the future. So this should be your definitive buying guide for getting your first Hanko light if you're ready to pony up the cash for the best. All right, let's start with the Hanko models that are available and the order they were released in, just for historical reasons. You can see that we have 7 models here. We've got the full twist, the gunner grip, Tesseract, Proto, Reactor, Tremor, and number 7. Now, this is the order the way I have it, but you know, if you know a lot about Hanko lights, you might be like, hey, is that quite accurate? That's because there's a little bit of like murkiness in the middle there based on the Proto and where you put the Proto in the order. So I've got it in this order based on the fact that this is the order he made them in, but I guess it's not fair to say he released them in that order. So this is what Ken McAfee over at the Facebook group said to me. He said that the release order actually went twist, gunner grip, Tesseract, then he made the Proto first, like I've got it here, but he didn't release it, okay? Then the Proto was a prototype for the Reactor, and the Reactor came out. Then he had the Tremor, and then the actual release Proto, the one that I'm holding here, really should go over here, like this. And then this is the release order for the masses. Now, the reason why that's interesting is because he also mentioned that this Proto that I have is the release Proto, and that the actual first Proto he meant, the prototype for the Reactor, actually looks a little bit different. Now, I'm going to be honest, I've seen pictures of the prototype, the actual prototype for the Tremor, and I couldn't tell the difference between the one that I'm holding, which is the release Proto, and the actual prototype. So I'm sure there's a difference there. I just didn't catch it. So that's why it's a little murky. So now that you know the order of them, let's take a close-up look at each model. All right, first up, we have the full twist. Now, it's called a full twist because there's been some models released that were twist on the bottom and then gunner grip on the top. So it is actually true that they were released in that configuration sometimes. And sometimes they're even kind of Legoed, and I'll show you some Legos in a bit. But let's go back to this. This is the full twist. This is a classic design. When I think Hanko, I think of this design for sure. Next up, we have the gunner grip. This is the gunner grip. And this, we're going to get to the metals and the finishes in a bit, so don't worry about the fact that it's darker. Just looking at the pattern, this is the gunner grip. And the light play as you turn it is really strong on this one. Now we've got the Tesseract. And this is, you know, the Tesseract pattern is a little more difficult to see on this one because I've also got the pattern of the Fenya Damasteel against it. But I think it looks great. And you can see the Tesseract is a bunch of little triangular, maybe diamond-shaped peaks. So that is the Tesseract. Okay, here's Proto. And I think Proto looks amazing. I think it's just a really fascinating design to look at. Reactor. This is what came out of Proto. The Proto is a prototype for this design, and you can see how they're related. I got to tell you, I sometimes go back and forth, but I'm in the camp of, I think Tremor is a more classic design. As much as I love the way Reactor looks, and I used to be bonkers for Reactor, I had to have one. But now that I have both in hand, I kind of feel like Reactor has a little more going on to it. And we're going to get to my overall ordering in a moment, but let's carry on. Second to last, we have Tremor. Again, the design's a little hard to see with the exact model I have, but it's a bunch of like little chevrons over and over. So let me get a little closer here, see if you can really see that design. There you go, a bunch of little kind of dainty chevrons, not as severe as some of the other models. And the last one that he created just about a year ago is number 7. This was the internal name because it's the 7th model he made, and it stuck. It's number 7. This one's pretty interesting because I think it has some pretty cool light play when you go back and forth. I like how the reflections look on the inside of these two little sections right here. You can see it goes up and down. I like that. I think now's a good time to mention that the clips I have on my lights are all aftermarket clips by Steel Flame. Here's an example of one. I love these really 3D ostentatious designs. I think they go really well on the custom lights. I'm into it. The Hankos themselves actually ship with their own two-dimensional flat steel flames that are Hanko themed. And let me show you a couple examples. So this is one example. You see it's got kind of a blue wash on it. It's got the Hanko kind of radioactive symbol, reactor symbol on the top there. It's kind of bluish. If I turn it just right, you can see, let me get a little focus, see how blue it is. Here's another one that I think shows some of the variation you can get on the clips here. It's got the acid etched look to it and a lot of subtle color that if you turn the correct way, and let me try to do so in this case, I'm gonna put a little ND filter on here. See those rich purples that pop out? It's hard to see on my even studio lighting here, but in sunlight, it just pops and there's these rich purples all over it. And the third and final clip I'll show you is just one that was polished so that it's really gleaming and shiny, and that's just really neat look as well. So you get all different manner and style of flat Hanko clips when you buy a Hanko from Hanko Machine Works. Now let's jump into the metals. So this is an example of titanium that was machine finish. I have not seen many machine finished titanium Hankos, so that's why I wanted to grab this one. His machining is so exact and so beautiful, and I kind of like it undressed like this, not post-processed at all, just raw titanium. I think it looks great. But he also offers a bunch of titanium finishes. So let's take a look at a couple of them. So this one is one of my favorite titanium finish he has. It's called Camo TI, kind of like camouflage. This is an oxidation layer that's pretty hard. It resists scratching in my experience, and I really like the way it looks. It looks really great. This Camo TI, I've seen it come out a little darker, a little lighter, but always kind of has this almost grayish olive appearance, and I really love it. He also has a Prism TI that he calls it. And Prism TI is basically the same thing you'd find on Zirconium, like an oil slick. So this is a hand heated post-process, what am I trying to say here? A finish that's done by hand with a torch. This is not done in an oven. And you can see that it's got kind of rainbow appearance across it. Kind of looks like oil on water. And again, this is called Prism TI. And probably my least favorite finish he does is stonewashed. Now, a stonewash has a very light appearance. It's not a heavy stonewash. And I'll tell you why it's my least favorite. So stonewashing in general is a good thing because it then will reduce the appearance of scratches as you use it. So it kind of like keeps its luster longer. But here's my thing. My thing is I baby these, and I love Jeff's machining so much that I kind of feel like stonewashing by a lot of makers is used to mask maker's marks and other imperfections. But, you know, his lights just don't have those imperfections, so I'd much rather just see it machine finish or one of his great finishes and kind of just, you know, really push how finely made these things really are. Now, when you get into the world of exotic materials, I think one of the first exotics that I should cover here is zirconium. So zirconium is silver before it's post-processed. And when it's post-processed, it can be processed like this, which is colloquially called glass zirc or black glass, one of those. And you can see it just has this really dark, almost black appearance. It's not quite black, and depending on the polish, the level of post-processing, you can get it really dark. But just so you know, when you get it, it's always going to be like a dark, 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 dark gray. It's never really black. So if you get one and you're like, mine's not black, well, they never really are. I know sometimes they look black in pictures, but they're actually kind of a dark, dark gray. Next up, we've got Damasteel. And this is actual Damasteel, not Damascus, right? Damascus steel is just like these kind of folding method of steel, but Damasteel is a trade name from a Finnish company. I forgot at the moment. But the fact of the matter is this is their Fenya pattern, and they have so many patterns, which is really interesting because that means that you get this interplay between what Jeff has machined and then the actual pattern of the Damascus steel itself. So you can get these nearly unlimited different interactions between what he's cut and what they've made. And I think this just looks amazing. I had to have this one. It was pricey, but I love it. And lastly, of the Hankos I want to go to his Mokume. And Mokume Gane, this is going to be a copper, brass, and nickel silver 3-color. You can see the nickel silver in there. You can see the dark copper, the rich copper, and then the yellowy brass. And so it's just got a beautiful look to it. Expect this to, I would say, wear the best, because a lot of these other things, like especially like the zirconium, they are black because of an oxidation layer over them. This thing is through and through this material. So, I mean, it's copper and it's a natural oxidation. If you clean it, the contrast goes away a little bit, but then just within like a week or two, depending on your humidity, all the contrast comes back. I think they look beautiful, but since they are, even though it's 3 metals, the 3 metals are 90% plus copper. So it's a hefty light. It's chunky and heavy in your hands, but it feels great. Feels rich and luxurious. I love these. Now, 2 exotic metals that he definitely works in that I just don't have in a Hanko right now is MokuTi and ZircuTi. So let's take a look at those. Here is a MokuTi, or a MokuTi, some people say, or a Damascus, all the same thing, okay? Damascus, MokuTi, one of those is a trade name. I really can't remember at the moment which one's the trade name. But the fact of the matter is these are layers of different versions of titanium that then, when heated, show up as different oxidations. So this is one of the things where if you were to polish this, all the color is going to come off and needs to be reflamed. When this is not oxidized, it just looks like raw titanium. But man, when it's heated up, it looks gorgeous, and it'll stay looking like this as long as you use light handling and you don't polish it. But another thing you can do is you can layer in Zirc in with the MokuTi or Damascus. So this is one of the hardest ones to show off. Let me try and show this off really well. What we've got here is layers of oil, zirconium, some darker grays of zirc. So you've got, it's actually the hardest one to show on camera, and in person, one of the most beautiful of all the exotics, in my opinion. So let me try and turn on one of my ND filters here and see if I can get a little better interplay here. There we go. I'm trying to show some of the rich colors. See, somewhere between that filter and this filter. There we go. You can see, I know it's dark, but you see that rich interplay of colors? Now, I want to point out that this is happening normally in sunlight. I have a kind of flat studio lighting in here so that all sides of this is illuminated, and it just doesn't pop like it does to your eye in sunlight. So for me, this is probably the most beautiful of all of them. See, it even looks a little different right here. It's kind of small on camera, but it looks different. So those are your exotics. Those are the metals that are available from. Now, he does more metals. He does bronze, he does brass, and the rarest of them all is this one, I think. And at first blush, you might think this was a glass zirconium, but it's not. It's actually anodized aluminum. Now, the thing about this is Jeff just doesn't make aluminum Hankos. I think it's just a personal maker's choice. I think he feels that titanium is just a much better metal. So there's only like maybe 2, maybe 3 aluminum Hankos in existence, and this is one of them. And this one was hot anodized. So it's kind of rare, very lightweight. He doesn't usually make them like this. Now, the last thing I want to show before we go on to other topics is I want to, like my personal ranking order, is I want to show that you can Lego these. So I'm going to take a twist here. You don't really show on the camera. Here's a full twist. And I'm going to go ahead and show you. So I'm going to thread these on each other and show you that his machining is so exacting that you can really Lego practically any model you want as long as the threads are the same. Now, and again, what I'm saying is these are standard Hanko threads. You can see that you can thread across them. And also, these are made years apart, and you can see how similar his 2 camo TIs are. So that if I get closer here, you can't even really tell that these were made years apart. That's how exacting this guy is. They look beautiful. And actually, I prefer these 2 cross-threaded like this. I think they look really great. So both of these models are his old single start threads. So these are the same threads that you'd find from, gosh, the early Mac Tri-EDCs to the Okluma, to a lot of makers use these same exact thread styles. So they're very, very compatible. But the thing is, you know, and I want to point out that when I unscrew this, watch, it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 turns until it comes off or so. And I want to point out that every point of these threads goes through every point on here because there's only one inlet and one outlet, right? It's one single channel that helixes all the way across. It's one start, if you will. There's only one place. And let me show that. So when I go to thread this on, when I lined it up, it hasn't engaged yet, right? It hasn't engaged yet. And when I finally, there we go, it just bit. So sometimes you have to rotate up to maybe 180, 355 degrees until you get it started, okay? Not a big deal, but I'm just getting very technical here. Now that you understand how that works, his newer models are TriStarts. That means there's 3 different inlets. And that also means that there's like 3 helixes going up around together. What that affords is 2 things. It affords that you can get them started quicker, meaning that if I set this down and if I just roll this around, you know, kind of like a lottery here, if I put it together, no matter where I kind of put it together, it doesn't take much until it's locked. See, I didn't turn it much because there's 3 different starts, you know, around it on like here, here, and here. The other thing is, because there's 3 pitches, well, there's 1 pitch, but 3 different troughs, it means that, watch this, 1, 2, it's off. So I didn't have to go around 8 times like on these other ones. So it actually makes for a really awesome thread experience. So a trick I'll show you is this. Because of the shape of the light, you can set it down on a table kind of like this, just put it up, and then it just threads on. And the reason why is because the shape of the light, this part and this part are all in alignment. So you just set it down, together, it threads. All right, now that we've gone over the threads and the body styles, let's talk about the internals a little bit. Emitters, drivers, things like that. So first off, even though these are custom lights, that's what they're called, custom lights, it's really like maker's choice, okay? When you go to buy one of these, you don't really specify what driver's in it, what, emitter temps you want. They go up for lottery. You buy the one he's got, okay? So the vast majority of these lights were 219C, Nietzsche 219C in the day, and 4000K. Then he, at some point, went to Samsung LH351D, probably because of the higher color rendition and the fact that they're super bright. However, those are mostly 4000K. I've seen a couple 5000K. Again, I don't think there's any rhyme or reason to this. As far as the drivers, Dragon from CWF, most of them that I've seen now, and definitely now, I've seen a bunch of Dr. Jones H17F. Again, he installs it, you buy it or you don't. It's not a big deal though, because when it comes to modding, I found them fairly easily to mod. His pills are straightforward. They're easy to get the drivers out, very easy to get the MCPCB off. So I don't think it's a big problem. And really, you're buying these for the quality of the host. And if you really, really want to swap them out, then you're swap them out. One thing that notably he doesn't do is he doesn't really make reflector models. Okay, and I'm gonna put a heavy asterisk there, but notice that this right here, and let me zoom in on it, I've got a reflector in there. Let me get a little closer actually. Notice that this is a reflector, and in fact, you can see that it's got a brass centering ring. This was aftermarket. This was made by Devin Bauer at Sigma. I love singles, and Devin sometimes will release some singles conversions that he's made. And I've got quite a few of them, actually. I snatch up as many as I can and try and make them all singles. But I want to point out that these are often called Hanko Tridents because this configuration here with this Carclo TIR optic is how they come from the maker. They're very bright, they're floody, they're excellent. But if you want a reflector, he just doesn't really make them. Heavy asterisk there. You'll see why towards the end of the video. So if you can find one, again, here's another one. You can find one like this that has a reflector in it. Awesome, but that's an aftermarket kind of fix. And there's a bunch of people that are kind of custom building pills now and getting convoy reflectors or Kai domain reflectors and putting them in there because I think it's something the market really wants is a single option for Hankos. Heavy asterisk, to be continued. Just keep watching. And I'll close this section up by showing you that if we take one of his 3 emitter models and go straight to turbo, you can see we're getting about 1700 lumens, depending on which emitters used. And the modded singles, you're giving up a lot of lumens because 1, 2, 3, they're going to come in around 500 to 600 lumens, depending on the driver, the emitter, and so forth. So the real difference here is whether you want something with a lot of lumens and floody, or if you want something with a little more candela. I'll kind of show you on my mat a little bit. Here is the floody one. You see how floody it is. And here is the one with more candela. You can see that it's got a hot spot and a spill. I'll point out that every model you've seen so far in the show, these are all 18360s. Let me go ahead and take this apart again and show a little 18360 battery there. The vast majority of Hanko Machine Works lights you're going to see are 18360s. But, he has made, especially recently, some 18650s, which are a little bit longer. And he also used to, way back in the day, kind of make heads for other lights. So, those are really rare and hard to find. You're gonna just stumble across one. But I wanted to point out the vast majority are 18350, but he is now making 18650 long boys, if that's what you're into. So, how do I rank the models based on look alone? So that's if I'm just looking, not my light, looking from afar, what do I think is most attractive? All right, my first favorite, and by the way, only by a little bit, is the Reactor. I think the Reactor, I'm gonna put it over here. The Reactor is my #1 favorite, and only by a little bit. So if you think that the first 1, 2, 3 here could be jumbled up, they probably could. Secondly, I think goes to the Tesseract. The Tesseract is an amazing design. I love the look of it. And then third, I'm gonna go ahead and put the Gunner Grip. These three are so close that they're a little bit of a jumble, but right now, in this moment, I mean, I've given it actually more thought than that, but Reactor, Tesseract, Gunner Grip, I think those are my order. Then I think based on looks alone, I would go Proto. I think Proto looks phenomenal. Then I would go number 7. Then I would go Twist, and Twist is super classic. So just understand that even though it placed a 6th, it doesn't mean I don't like it. I like it a lot. It's super classic. It's just, I think that these all look like they stand out a lot. And then the last one, actually, I would place number 7th, is the Tremor. Now, the Tremor isn't a bad design, so that's why I'm going to call it number 7. I really shouldn't say last. It's just number 7th on my look based on looks alone. Now, I've been stressing looks alone. Here's why. Because when you get them into your hands, I think you have to kind of consider the hand feel and how it feels when you're using it day to day. Now, I've lived with all of these designs, and now I'm going to order them with the consideration of how they look and hand feel. So this isn't hand feel only, this is together both. So now I'd put them like this. The number 1 for me is Gunner Grip. I'm gonna put Gunner Grip over here like so. Number 2 is Reactor. So I still think Reactor is a really good looking light and feels great in the hand. Then Tesseract. So this order didn't jumble a lot, but I just wanna point out that I think these two have a better hand feel than this one. And then I would put number 7 next. Then I would put Tremor. Tremor jumps up a lot, and the reason why it jumps up a lot is it feels so darn good in your hand. Then I would put Proto, and then I would put Twist. And the reason why the shuffle happens here is because now if I'm going hand feel alone, like I'm blind and I'm not looking at it, the number 1 for hand feel is Tremor. Tremor feels so good in the hand. Number 2 on hand feel alone would be Twist. This would be at the top of the list if I was like, not looking at it. And based on hand feel alone, what I put number 7th is Proto. It's got some pretty sharp edges. Well, not sharp, that's a bad term. It's a little bit pokey. But I also want to point out that depending on what metal you get it in and what level of post-processing happened, for example, this Damasteel being steel, it hasn't been post-processed nearly as much as, let's say, this Zirc has. This has been polished a lot. So that's part of the reason why I probably prefer the feel of this one compared to over here. So you got to take that with a grain of salt and know that some get polished more and the edges get kind of rounded more. Something to think about. So where do I get my first Hanko? Well, they're currently only sold on the Hanko Machine Works Facebook group. So go over to Facebook. If you don't have an account, it's worth it. It's worth it to get one because if you're getting into customs, honestly, the majority of the custom makers are on Facebook. I used to try and stay off Facebook like the plague. I was like, I hate Facebook. But you know what? I gotta be honest. Once you get into the groups, just stay there, stay off the main feed, and it's actually a pretty lovely place. So go to Hanko Machine Works, as you can see up here on the top, and join that group. You got to get approved. And this is where all the new lotteries are done, is on here on the group. This is an example of one that just happened this week. You can see the longer body here. This is an 18650, and you can also see this particular one is made out of copper and silver Mokume. And it, you can see the price right here. It's $2,800. So note that the price can get really up there for exotics. But oh man, if you've got the dough and you really love this stuff, nothing finer. These things are amazing. So once you've joined this group, I'm also going to point out that there's new information about things coming out. And up here, look at this. This just released about an hour ago. This is a sneak peek at something he's releasing. You might look at it and go, hey, isn't that just a full twist? Well, if you look at it, the dimensions are off a little bit. The head looks a little longer. And then if I were to zoom in right here, it makes me think that possibly this is our first reflector single by Hanko. So that's really exciting. It sounds like we don't have to go get these mods anymore. It seems like in the future here, Hanko is going to be making the head a little longer to incorporate reflectors, and yay, because we love singles so much. And you know, I was talking to Artie Trudell just the other day about this. It turns out that just simply slapping a single in there isn't as easy as you might think, because it's just a battle of dimensions. There's only enough space for the Carclo optics as is, and if you start taking away from the pill to add more space from the reflector, then there's not enough like mass there to make it thermally viable. So, and then when you lengthen that head, then all of a sudden you're trying to get all these little designs here. Because, I mean, think about the fact that this design lines up 360. This design right here is the same shape as over here, but yet there is just enough of them to go 360 in wrap and from top to bottom with no extra space. So it's kind of one of those things where, you know, then you go to make it a couple millimeters long and all of that math has to be redone and refigured out. And, you know, Jeff is a perfectionist. He's not going to release something that isn't just perfect. So I hope this was a great little journey here on what's out there for Hanko Machine Works, and hopefully this will help you purchase your first Hanko. And please consider subscribing to my channel, liking this video, commenting, tell me in the description what you love about Hanko Customs, because honestly, I love talking this stuff with you guys. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next review.